Let us study duodenum under the following headings: Introduction, Location and Parts, Relations, Interior and Layers of Duodenum, Development, Blood Supply and Venous Drainage, Nerve Supply and Applied Importance. Coming to the introduction to the duodenum, duodenum is a C-shaped organ which is actually the continuation of the pyloric end of the stomach, and it will be at the vertebral level L1, L2 and L3. So this is the vertebrae L1, L2 and L3 which will be occupying the vertebral levels L1, L2 and L3. The term duodenum is derived from a Greek word duodecadactylos. Okay, duodecadactylos. Du means 2, deca means 10. Okay, dactylos means fingers. Okay, so it is the meaning of duodecadactylos is 12 fingers. 12 fingers. The total length of the duodenum is approximately 12 finger width. Okay, that's why it is called as duodecadactylos, and for duodenum is derived from this word. Okay, this Greek word. Now let's see the location of the duodenum. This is the thoracic cavity, this is the abdominal cavity. These are all the regions of the abdomen. Okay, this is the C-shaped duodenum which is occupying the epigastric and the umbilical region. Okay, it is occupying epigastric and umbilical region. This is the epigastric region and this is the C-shaped duodenum occupying up to the umbilical region. Now it is surrounding the head of the pancreas. This is the head of the pancreas, followed by the neck and then the body and the tail of the pancreas. So the C-shaped duodenum is located around the head of the pancreas. You see the extent, it is extending from the pyloric end of the stomach up to the duodenojejunal flexure, Okay, so duodenum has got 4 parts. The first part which is horizontal and it is 5 centimeter long, and the second part which is extending from the superior duodenal flexure downwards which is almost 8 centimeter long. Then the third part which is extending from the inferior duodenal flexure horizontally and it is around 10 centimeter long. Okay, then the fourth part which is an upward continuation, is the shortest part and it is 2 centimeter long. Totally the length of the duodenum is around 25 centimeter. Next, there is a structure called suspensory ligament of Treitz. Otherwise, we can call it as suspensory muscle of duodenum. Okay, this is the one. Suspensory ligament of Treitz or the suspensory ligament of suspensory muscle of duodenum, which is extending from the right crest of the diaphragm. This is actually the diaphragm. Okay, this is the right crest of the diaphragm. It is extending from the right crest of the diaphragm and passes behind the pancreas. So the pancreas will be lying here, becoming anterior to it. Okay, it will be passing behind the pancreas to get attached in the duodenojejunal flexure. On the posterior aspect of the duodenojejunum will be coming from here. So duodenojejunal flexure and also the fourth and the third part of the duodenum. Okay, so it is attached posteriorly to the duodenum, where in the duodenojejunal flexure, posterior to the duodenojejunal flexure, and also the third and the fourth parts of duodenum. This structure is called suspensory ligament of Treitz. Coming to the relations of duodenum to that of the pancreas. If you see, this is actually the C-shaped duodenum and it is surrounding the head of the pancreas. If you see, this is the first part of the duodenum. This first part of duodenum is related superior to that of the head of the pancreas, or we can tell the inferiorly the first part is related to the head of the pancreas. Okay, inferiorly the first part is related to the head of the pancreas. Then if you go to the second part, to its left it is related to so this is the left side, that is the right side. Okay, so to the left it is related to the head of the pancreas. Okay, that is the second part. If you see the third part, superiorly it is related to the head of the pancreas. This second part is also medially related to the bile duct. You can see this is actually the bile duct. Okay, it is also related medially to the bile duct. Okay. Now let's study the anterior relation of duodenum. You can see this is the duodenum. we are going to see the anterior relation of each part of duodenum. This is the first part of duodenum. If you see the first part of duodenum, it's related to the quadrate lobe of liver. So this area is the quadrate lobe of liver. It is related to the quadrate lobe of liver and also this green structure that is actually the gallbladder. Okay, anteriorly it is related to quadrate lobe of liver and gallbladder. Okay, coming to the second part, this is the second part, vertical part. Okay, it is related anteriorly to the right lobe of liver. You can see it is related anteriorly to right lobe of liver. Okay, and also the transverse colon. You can see this is actually the transverse colon. It is also related to transverse colon along with the mesentery which is covering the transverse colon and which is getting attached to the anterior part of the duodenum. Okay, and then this mesentery is called transverse mesocolon. So it is second part is related to transverse colon, transverse mesocolon and also the right lobe of liver. Now coming to the third part, this is the third part. Okay, that is the horizontal part. If you see the third part, it is related anteriorly to, you can see anteriorly it is related to the superior mesenteric vessels. You can see this is actually the superior mesenteric artery along accompanied by the superior mesenteric vein. Okay, anteriorly it is related to the superior mesenteric vessels and this superior mesenteric vessel is enclosed inside the root of the mesentery. We can see there is the anterior layer of root of mesentery and posterior layer of root of mesentery. Okay, so it is also related to the root of the mesentery. Okay, it is related to the root of the mesentery and the superior mesenteric vessels. This root of the mesentery is attached from the duodenojejunal flexure to that of the right sacroiliac joint, Okay, okay. So this is about the anterior relation of the third part, the superior mesenteric vessels and the root of the mesentery. Then coming to the fourth part, okay, shortest part, the fourth part, it is related anteriorly to the large intestine, that is the horizontal part, which is the transverse colon. You can see it is related to the transverse colon anteriorly and also to the transverse mesocolon. Okay, it is related to transverse colon, transverse mesocolon and near the greater curvature of the stomach. You can see anteriorly it is related to stomach. Part of it is related to stomach. Anteriorly stomach, transverse colon and transverse mesocolon. Okay, and between the stomach and so behind the stomach we have the lesser sac. So that is also related anteriorly. So the last part, the fourth part is related anteriorly it is related to stomach, the transverse colon and the transverse mesocolon and also the lesser sac which is lying behind the stomach. To understand the relations of duodenum, first we should understand what are the structures which are arranged in the posterior abdominal wall. Okay, so you can see in the midline, we can see the lumbar vertebrae. These are L1, L2 and L3 lumbar vertebrae. Okay, so L1, L2 and L3 lumbar vertebrae. Here we can see this muscle which is attached to the lumbar vertebrae and also the lower thoracic vertebrae. Okay, T12. So this muscle is the psoas major on either side. Okay, and one more structure we have shown here, that is a sympathetic chain. This will be present on either side. Here we are only mentioning the left sympathetic chain. Okay, only we are mentioning the left sympathetic chain to study the relations. Next, the next important structure what we should know is the abdominal aorta, which is present along the left side of the vertebrae. Can you see? It is present over the left part of the vertebrae. While talking about aorta, we should know few branches which are arising from the aorta. We can see this is actually the celiac trunk which divides into three branches. You can see this is the left gastric artery, splenic artery. We are not showing the entire course. Then this one is the common hepatic artery which is dividing into the hepatic artery proper. Okay, that is the hepatic artery proper and gastroduodenal artery. Okay, the next branch which is arising is the superior mesenteric artery. You can see this is actually the superior mesenteric artery. You can see here this is actually the superior mesenteric artery, and these two from either side are the renal arteries. Okay, renal arteries. Below that we can see these two are the gonadal arteries. Either testicular or ovarian arteries. Okay, then at last you can see this branch. This is actually the inferior mesenteric artery. Okay, then last the terminal branches, there is the common iliac artery. So this is what we should know about the aorta.
Onto the right of the aorta, we have the inferior vena cava. Onto the right, we have the inferior vena cava.
If you see the inferior vena cava, you can see it is lying just anterior to the aorta and to the right. Okay, you can see some of the vessels of the aorta are running anterior to the inferior vena cava. You can see this is actually the common hepatic artery, which is dividing into the gastroduodenal and the proper hepatic artery. And you can see this is actually the superior mesenteric artery, which is going over the left renal vein. Okay, going over the left renal vein. You can see this is actually the right gonadal artery, either testicular or ovarian artery, which is going over the vena cava. Okay. Next, attached to these renal vessels, we have the kidney on either side. Okay, kidney on either side. Can note the right kidney it is little lower and the left kidney is little higher up. Okay, which is attached to the renal vessels. Now, arising from the kidney, we have the ureter. This is actually the ureter of right and left side. Okay, right ureter and left ureter. Next is between these two vessels, that is the inferior vena cava and the branches of the proper of the common hepatic artery, we have this vein called the portal vein. Okay, it's the portal vein. To the right of these arteries, there is a common hepatic and the gastroduodenal artery. We have the bile duct. This is actually the bile duct. Okay. Now we'll orient the relations of these structures with the duodenum. See, this is actually the C-shaped duodenum. This duodenum will be between the vertebral levels L1, L2 and L3. So it will be placed like this, okay, over all these structures. So this is the exact position of duodenum. So this is the first part of duodenum, the second part of duodenum, this is the third part of the duodenum, and this is the fourth part of duodenum. First part of duodenum is around 5 centimeters long. Okay, the second part, which is a descending part, which is around 8 centimeter long, and this horizontal part, which is the third part of the duodenum, which is around 10 centimeter long, and the last part, which is actually the ascending part of the duodenum, which is around 2 centimeter long. Now we will see the posterior relation of each part. The first part, if you see, the posteriorly it is related to first initially the blood vessel here. You can see this is actually the gastroduodenal artery. Followed by, you can see this is the bile duct. You can see that clearly. See, that is the gastroduodenal artery here and this is the bile duct. Okay. So behind these two structures we have the portal vein. Okay, behind these two structures we have the portal vein, and behind the portal vein we have the inferior vena cava. Behind the portal vein we have inferior vena cava. See, these are the posterior relation of the first part. You can see it clearly. The gastroduodenal artery, the bile duct, the portal vein, and behind that we have the inferior vena cava. Next, coming to the second part, the posterior relation of second part. You can see the lateral aspect, it is related to the medial part of the right kidney. Okay, medial aspect of the right kidney. Then followed by the renal vessels. Okay, followed by the renal vessels. You can see the renal artery and the renal vein. And also you can see the ureter. Okay, the beginning part of the renal pelvis and the ureter. More posteriorly, the second part is related to this muscle. That is the psoas major muscle. You can see more posteriorly it is related to psoas major muscle. Now coming to the third part. You can see the third part is lying over these two important blood vessels. That is the inferior vena cava and the aorta. Okay, mainly the inferior vena cava and aorta. Between these two blood vessels and the duodenum, it is actually separated by these two structures. We can see the right ureter, and this is actually the right gonadal artery. Okay, this is actually the right gonadal artery. We can see it here. This is the right ureter, and this is actually the right gonadal artery. Okay, so this is about the posterior relation of the third part of the duodenum. Okay, third part of the duodenum. Now coming to the last part, that is the fourth part of duodenum. Fourth part of the duodenum is related posteriorly to the renal vein, the inferior mesenteric artery, and the left gonadal vessels. Okay, left gonadal artery. This is actually the left gonadal artery. Now we'll see clearly. If you remove this, we can see the fourth part is lying over. See, you can see this is actually the inferior mesenteric artery. This is the left gonadal artery, and this is the
left renal vein.
If you go much more deeper, you can see it is also related to the sympathetic chain. You can see this. It's actually the sympathetic chain. It is related to the sympathetic chain. And also the left psoas major. Okay, and also the left psoas major. So these are all the posterior relation of entire duodenum. Now let's study the interior of the duodenum. Okay, this is the C-shaped duodenum. If you open up the duodenum, we can see many circular mucosal folds. We can see the mucosa is thrown into many folds. You can see these are the circular mucosal folds. You can see it throughout. Okay, these circular mucosal folds are called the valves of Kirkrig. This circular mucosal folds will help to increase the surface area of the intestine. So it is present throughout the small intestine. The next important structure what you have to see in relation to the mucosa is an elevated region which is called the major duodenal papillae. We can see there is an opening here. You can see an opening here. This is actually the major duodenal papillae, which is an elevated region. At the summit we have the opening of hepatopancreatic duct. This is the opening of the hepatopancreatic duct. You can see how this hepatopancreatic duct is formed. So what you are seeing is actually the bile duct. This is actually the bile duct. Okay, this bile duct joins with the pancreatic duct. This is actually the pancreatic duct. You can see is the pancreatic duct. So it joins with the pancreatic duct here. Okay, and then it becomes the hepatopancreatic duct, which will open into the second part of the duodenum. This is actually the, see, this is a straight part. This is the second part of the duodenum. Opens into the second part of the duodenum on the posteromedial aspect. Okay, you can see along the medial aspect. This is actually the posteromedial aspect of the duodenum where you have the major duodenal papillae. If you exactly see, it will be around 10 centimeter from the, it will be located at around 10 centimeter from the pyloric end of the stomach. Okay, if you see around 10 centimeter from the pyloric end of the stomach, it will be located. Just proximal to it, few centimeter proximal to it, we can have an inconsistent small projection like this called the minor duodenal papillae, where the accessory pancreatic duct may open. Okay, where we have a minor duodenal papillae which is not seen here. Okay, it is inconsistent. It's not present in all the duodenums. Okay, that is about the interior of duodenum. Next, coming to the layers of the duodenum, just like any other intestine specimen, we have any other GAT specimen, we have the following layers. From inside out, we have the mucosa followed by the submucosa. Then we have the muscularis externa. We can see this muscle layer. This is the muscularis externa, and at last we have the serosa. Okay, these are the layers of duodenum. And the most important feature about the layers of duodenum is presence of Brunner's gland. So the Brunner's gland will be located in the, see, this submucosa. Okay, Brunner's gland will be located in the submucosa. Now let's study the blood supply of duodenum. This is the first part of duodenum, second part, the third part, and the fourth part of duodenum. Okay. So the duodenum develops from two sources. One is from the foregut and other one is from midgut. Okay. So this is the level where you have the major duodenal papillae. The part superior to it is derived from foregut. The part inferior to it is derived from midgut. The artery of foregut is celiac trunk. Okay, and artery of midgut is superior mesenteric artery. Artery of midgut is superior mesenteric artery. So the area above the major duodenal papillae will be receiving branches from the celiac trunk, and the area which is distal to the major duodenal papillae will be receiving the source arteries from the superior mesenteric artery. Okay. Now let's see the celiac trunk. So this is the celiac trunk, which will have three branches: the left gastric, the splenic, and the common hepatic. This common hepatic will divide into the proper hepatic artery is the proper hepatic artery is a common hepatic artery. The common hepatic artery will divide into proper hepatic artery and the gastroduodenal artery. This is the gastroduodenal artery. Okay, gastroduodenal artery. This gastroduodenal artery goes posterior to the duodenum and divides into the superior pancreatico-duodenal artery and the right gastroepiploic artery. This is the right gastroepiploic artery, and this is actually the superior pancreatico-duodenal artery. Okay, so it is dividing into two sources, and this superior pancreatico-duodenal artery will give many branches to the duodenum. Okay, and this superior pancreatico-duodenal artery will be ending by anastomosing with that of the inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery. This is actually the inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery. You can see, so the area supplied by the superior pancreatico-duodenal artery will be stopping above the level of the major duodenal papillae. This first part of duodenum also receives additional branches from, you can see this is the gastroduodenal artery. So it also receives additional branches from the gastroduodenal artery. This is the right gastroepiploic artery. It also receives additional branches from right gastroepiploic artery. This is actually the common hepatic artery. So it also receives additional branches from the common hepatic artery, and also this proper hepatic artery gives right gastric artery. Okay, it gives right gastric artery to supply the stomach, and this right gastric also gives additional branches to the first part of duodenum. Okay, this is actually the right gastric artery. These arteries which are arising from the common hepatic artery are called supraduodenal artery. Okay, supraduodenal artery of Wilkie. Okay, supraduodenal artery of Wilkie. So the arteries which are coming from the common hepatic arteries are called supraduodenal artery of Wilkie. Next we will see the blood supply derived from the blood supply of the duodenum which are derived from midgut. So the artery of the midgut is the superior mesenteric artery. As you know, this is actually the superior mesenteric artery. This superior mesenteric artery will give a branch called the inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery. This is actually the inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery. This is the one. Okay. So this inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery will be anastomosing with the superior pancreatico-duodenal artery. So rest of the part of the duodenum will be supplied by the inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery. So the part distal to the major duodenal papillae will be supplied by the inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery, which is a branch of superior mesenteric artery. This is the superior mesenteric artery. So this is about the blood supply of duodenum. Okay. So since the duodenum is developing from two different sources, that is the foregut and midgut, it is supplied by two different blood vessels. Okay, the artery of foregut and artery of midgut. So next we will study about the venous drainage. If you see the venous drainage, the veins which are arising from the duodenum will be draining either into the portal vein directly or into the superior mesenteric vein. So this is actually the superior mesenteric vein. Okay, this is the superior mesenteric vein. This is actually superior mesenteric artery. Okay, so this is actually the superior mesenteric vein. Either it will drain directly into the portal vein or into the superior mesenteric vein, or it can drain into the splenic vein. Okay, or it can drain into the splenic vein. So these are the three areas where the venous blood will drain into, either into directly into the portal vein or into the superior mesenteric vein or into the splenic vein. Okay, what we should note is this superior mesenteric vein joins with the splenic vein behind the neck of the pancreas to form the portal vein. Okay, so this is about the venous drainage. Next, coming to the lymphatic drainage, we need to know about few lymph nodes. Okay, group of lymph nodes. This is actually the lymph nodes which are present along the medial aspect of the second part of the duodenum, and these nodes are called pancreatico-duodenal nodes. These nodes are called pancreatico-duodenal nodes. Okay, then next set of nodes, what we need to know, very important nodes, is associated with celiac trunk. Okay, associated with celiac trunk. This is called celiac nodes. Next, we need to know about the nodes which are associated with the hepatic artery and the liver. These are the hepatic nodes. Okay, these are the hepatic nodes. Next, some nodes associated with the pyloric end of the stomach. These are the pyloric nodes. These are the pyloric nodes. Okay, these are the pyloric nodes. At last, nodes associated with the superior mesenteric artery. Okay, associated with superior mesenteric artery. These are the superior mesenteric nodes. Okay, now we need to know about 5 groups of nodes. One is the pancreatico-duodenal nodes, hepatic nodes, celiac nodes, the pyloric nodes, and the superior mesenteric nodes. So initially, the lymph from the duodenum will pass into the pancreatico-duodenal nodes. Okay, will pass into the pancreatico-duodenal nodes. From the pancreatico-duodenal nodes, it will follow the course of the artery and it will end in the hepatic nodes. It will go into the hepatic nodes. Okay, from the hepatic nodes, the lymph vessels will be draining the lymph into the celiac nodes. This is the pathway of lymphatic drainage which are happening through the pancreatico-duodenal nodes, hepatic, and the celiac nodes. Some lymphatic vessels from the first part of duodenum drains into the pyloric nodes. Okay, some vessels from the first part of duodenum drains into the pyloric node. From the pyloric node, it will reach into the celiac nodes. Okay, from the pyloric nodes, the lymphs will reach into the celiac nodes. And this part which are derived from the midgut will be draining into the superior mesenteric nodes. Okay, will be draining into the superior mesenteric nodes. Finally, all these lymph will be drained via the intestinal lymphatic trunk. Okay, it will be drained via the intestinal lymphatic trunk to reach the cisterna chyli. Okay, to reach the cisterna chyli. This is about the lymphatic drainage of duodenum. Coming to the nerve supply, the duodenum receives both sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve supply. Sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic will reach the duodenum via the spinal segments T9 and T10. Okay, via the spinal segments T9 and T10. And the parasympathetic will be reaching through celiac plexus. Okay, will be reaching the duodenum through celiac plexus. And these parasympathetic fibers will be coming from the vagus. Okay, will be coming from the vagus. From the vagus through the celiac plexus, it will supply the duodenum. It will be supplying the duodenum. These parasympathetic fibers will supply the glands of the duodenum, which will help to neutralize the acidic environment, okay, which will help to neutralize the acidic environment by increasing the secretion of water and bicarbonates. These parasympathetics also help in secretion of an enzyme called as cholecystokinin. And this cholecystokinin will cause constriction of the gallbladder, and relaxes the sphincter of Oddi, so that the bile which is present inside the gallbladder will be emptied into the duodenum. Okay. So this is happening whenever there is an increased level of fatty food inside the stomach. Whenever there is an increased amount of fatty food which is reaching the stomach, and it is once it reaches the duodenum, this cholecystokinin is secreted, and this secretion is brought about by the parasympathetic stimulation, and this will help in contraction of the gallbladder to release the bile into the duodenum, okay, to help in the fat digestion. This is about the nerve supply of duodenum. Coming to the applied importance of duodenum, first most important applied importance is the peptic ulcer. Peptic ulcer is very common in the first part of duodenum. Okay, it is very common in the first part of duodenum because that is the place where the most of the gastric acid will be in contact. Okay, next the first part is also related anteriorly to the gallbladder. So if there is any gallstones which are perforating through the gallbladder, can perforate into the duodenum. Okay, perforating gallstones. Next, when it comes near the second part, it is very closely related to the head. Okay, in any malignancies of the head of the pancreas, it can obstruct the second part of duodenum. And also it can obstruct the bile duct. Okay, hepatopancreatic duct. Next, the duodenal malignancies are very, very uncommon. When compared to the gastric malignancies, duodenal malignancies are very uncommon. These are all the common applied importance of duodenum. Okay, thank you.